The light has blessed us in Dragonflight Alpha, for we can finally test Holy Paladin a week after all the other Paladin specs have gotten their talents. And yes, we will be talking about the talents in Dragonflight and what the builds could be, what they look like, are they tuned, are they not, are they implemented, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you like the type of content that we do, covering all the classes and of course every other thing that we do on the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and enable those notification bell thingy stuff, because we do daily videos right now, and it's likely that if you don't have those notifications you might not get some of them. So if you want to know exactly what's happening in alpha and soon to be beta in general in Dragonflight, as well as some guides that we still do for the season 4 in Shadowlands, consider, you know, making sure that all of the stuff goes into your feed. 3 clicks helps our channel. We love you very much. Let's talk about Holy Paladin talents and how they feel on the Dragonflight Alpha. Now, there are some bugs. I don't know if you'll be able to tell from the footage that we have so far, but healing targets is kind of bugging out here and there in Dragonflight Alpha. So where sometimes I just heal myself even though I have a player targeted, even I have mouse over macros, those still don't work all the time, it bugs out, it's fine. Outside of those bugs, we could essentially test a couple of things, which we're gonna go over really quick. We've done 2 other Paladin videos on the general talent, so I only touch on like 2 or 3 of them, but if you want to get more acquainted with what the general talent tree looks like, check our Red and Prot Paladin videos. First of all, what you might notice is that the top part of the talent says with all of them so far, you have general utility and defensives and things that you might have already as spells or baseline. Once again, these talent trees are not actual talents. They're not like the talents that you know now, that you've known for 17 years. They're essentially combined with your spell book. You learn and uncover your class as you're putting points in. So sure, some of them that were baseline are a choice now that you might not get, so you might not have your full class. That is how it is. I think it's fine. I think it offers more options to build your spec. And with that out of the way, Blessing of Spell Warding is a Holy Paladin thing, which I think it was only protection for a very long time. So this is a big one. Making a target immune to magic damage is pretty fucking strong. It was so strong that for the longest time only protection had it, but now Holy has it, and there's no other healer that has this. Sure, you have Bop, which makes targets immune to physical, and now you can have spell warding as well that can make them immune to magical. Obviously, spell warding is supposed to replace Bop, Blessing of Protection that is, so you trade it off, but I think it's a pretty good trade considering that there's plenty of magical damage that happens in the raid. Then as long as a boss doesn't just have frostball shots as their auto attack type of damage thing, you can even put this on a tank so that the tank doesn't lose aggro and you make them immune to magic damage. Holy shit, that's pretty good. And if you keep looking on the middle side of the talent tree, the column goes down to Sanctified Wrath, which is probably going to be very strong at a choice node with Seraphim, which I doubt. Holy Paladin is gonna play more so because it does cost holy power, and because I still believe Sanctified Wrath is better, especially since you might need a lot more holy power as Holy Paladin, especially if you play the casting Holy Light builds, but we'll go into that in a second. You might notice that the other options, capstones that is, are very strong in damage and healing throughput. You have Mad Paragon, the legendary that we've had so far if you want to like slap that damage hard, and Seal of Order on the other side, which also gives damage but also gives healing as well, which is kind of hard to test either of these two just because the content is in a way where it dies really quick. There's not enough throughput time to kind of like imagine how these would play, but I would see stuff like Seal of Order being really good in prolonged boss fights as well. Not to mention we've been playing Mad Paragon in Shadowlands for a while, so the damage is pretty there. But probably the biggest thing that you might see there is Rebuke. Yes, you can kick as a Holy Paladin right now, which is something that healers have been wanting for a while. I don't know if all healers have this. I think they do so far, but doesn't matter, you do have Rebuke. It is melee, so as much as you would like to just be at range and cast all those lovable spells, for the biggest effects and the most efficient spells you might have to still be melee, which maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. Rebuke will probably be more useful in dungeons, and in dungeons being up and close and personal is not that uncommon, and especially if you're playing the Glimmer build, you're obviously gonna be in melee all the time. And with that out of the way, let's actually take a look at the actual spec talents, which if you look down the middle, you'll see the quintessential cooldowns for Holy Paladin, starting with Divine Protection, and if you keep going down, you have Aura Mastery, and there's a couple of nodes that will buff certain cooldowns, and you might go to a choice node that has Avenging Wrath Might and Avenging Crusader. Now, Avenging Wrath Might is basically the Wings buffer, which the Wings itself as a cooldown has been split into 3 nodes. There's 2 of them in the general talent tree where you just get the Wings and then you reduce the cooldown by 1 minute, which I mean, oh, come on. Fine. This is something I'm not a fan of for Paladins as a whole, not just Holy. And Avenging Wrath Might gives you 20% extra healing and damage right now on the tooltip so far, meaning that if this is true and if you do pick Avenging Wrath Might, you will have Wings that will give you 40% damage and 40% healing, and it seems so far that we're gonna lose the crit effect from Wings, which is a little bit weird, especially for Holy Paladin that relies on Holy Shock crits to proc Infusion of Light and stuff like that. So I don't know if this is intended, if this is just a mishap, if this is just the wrong tooltip, because picking all these Avenging Wrath Might talents will combine them into a big Wings button, which is basically the button that you have now, hopefully, but we'll see. While Avenging Crusader is the other choice that will replace Wings, and it's pretty good. I mean, Avenging Crusader is basically the Glimmer option, I suppose, since you do hit melees and you want the melees to heal and stuff like that. And I guess that's gonna be a choice node that we'll have to look into how it's designed further on. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom to the capstones, you will see Liadrins Fury Unleashed, which doesn't work right now on alpha, so we couldn't really test it because it does say that every 4 seconds Wings generates 1 holy power per point spent, and it's a 2-node point. I don't know what the second node is supposed to do. Is the effect that we see right now supposed to be the 2-node effect? Does it give you 2 holy power every 4 seconds? Does it give you a holy power every 2 seconds? Like, we don't know yet. And this is an important piece of information because it does play into some of the issues with what holy power means for Holy Paladin right now, considering that the biggest heal, Word of Glory, does cost these holy powers. And obviously, kind of opposite, but not really opposite to it, you have Awakening, which is also a 2-node point, also doesn't change its tooltip based on the points, so I would expect maybe the second point giving you a 30% chance to proc Wings. And this is interesting because since Liadrins doesn't really work, we don't know how they work in conjunction with each other. Once you have Wings, do you initially get a holy power right away, or do you get the holy power at the 4-second mark and then again at the 8-second mark and so on? Because depending on how you get the holy power, Awakening could be the combination of the two basically could be good or amazing, because Awakening so far I think it lasts only 10 seconds. The Wings, yeah, you get Wings for 10 seconds. So if the holy power is generated at the 4-second mark, then you get 2 holy powers. If it's generated at the 0-second mark and then 4 and then 8, then you get 3 holy powers, and you know, double that if the second point in Liadrin is supposed to give you another extra holy powers, or quicker, or I don't know. But since it doesn't work, then we're not exactly sure. However, the combination of the two could make for some interesting playstyles. They seem to work both with the left-hand side playstyle, which we'll go into a second, and the right-hand side. So likely you will probably always build the middle column, although obviously that's not set in stone, but it's so much power here that it's hard for me to see how you can avoid picking all of this. And I did opt to not talk about Divine Revelations, which is actually a 3-pointer, which is a little bit, you know, it's heavy on the points. And I don't know if it's gonna be taken, because this is basically an Infusion of Light buffer, where it makes Flash of Light heal for additional heal, or Holy Light refund mana. Now, refunding mana is pretty nice, but clearly this is meant to further optimize the casting playstyle of Holy Paladin, and I think pretty much everybody and their mom would like to see Holy Light being a shorter cast time, because right now it's a heavy cast time, and we will go into that further on. But the reason I'm mentioning this is if you don't go the heavy cast time, maybe even if you do go the heavy casting route, you might skip this. It's a heavy 3-point investor, and there's so many good points out there spread out throughout the talent that I don't know if Divine Revelation is going to be taken, although it's mana refund and it's more healing on Flash of Light. So basically that's makes both of these spells be more mana efficient altogether. I guess we'll see. Now, if you go to the left-hand side of the tree, you will notice the Glimmer build with Glimmer of Light being closer to the bottom, but not really a capstone, which is basically the same. It's on up to 8 targets. Now, whether or not it's tuned right, obviously that's always something that we need to test once we have proper content. And you will see a little bit to the left of it, Blessing of Summer, which is a dead-end node, but it is the Night Fae ability, which is... This is also a particular hard one to judge because it definitely relies on the encounters, the length of the combat, how well you use it. You're not trading a Covenant ability for it anymore, so maybe we'll see more play for it in Dragonflight. But so far, as much as I can say about it is that it is there. Now, further down below, branching out from the Glimmer of Light, you do have Divine Toll, which is pretty important because it does make Glimmer smack super hard with Divine Resonance as a capstone, which is pretty good because, you know, you do want that Divine Resonance, that Holy Power generation. And obviously to make all of this work properly, because if you are playing Glimmer, you will need Crusader's Might, which is on the left-hand side, and it's a dead-end node, meaning that once you get Crusader's Might, there's no way to go from there, and you need Crusader's Might if you play any sort of melee Holy Paladin, especially to reduce that cooldown of Holy Shock, because otherwise the build doesn't work, and it's a 2-pointer. So it's a pretty heavy investment, and it's probably going to be a mandatory investment if you do play Glimmer. I mean, I would be super curious to see how a Glimmer build can work efficiently without Crusader's Might. And something else that I wanted to talk about is what goes down from Glimmer of Light, which could probably be considered kind of a capstone, but not really. It's Barrier of Faith, which is not implemented, but from the looks of it, so what it does, it's a 25-second cooldown. It costs a lot of mana, but it infuses a target with Barrier of Fate, healing them for a decent amount, a little bit, but not too much. For the next 18 seconds, Barrier of Fate accumulates 20% of the effective healing from your Flash of Light or Holy Light spells, and every 6 seconds, the accumulated healing becomes an Absorb Shield. Now, this is very expensive in terms of mana cost. This only works with Holy Light and Flash of Light, and it's clearly a massive tank healing cooldown. And since it costs a lot of base mana, and since it requires you to spend mana on the cast, this doesn't really feel like it should be here in this side of the talent tree, because pretty much everything that we have on this left-hand side talent tree is, you know, Holy Shock, Crusader's Might, generate Holy Power in melee, spend it really quick on Words of Glory and things like that. I could see this a little bit to the right, but I don't know if there's a place to put it on the right-hand side, and we'll get there in a second. So, plus it's not implemented on alpha, so we can really test it. And we mentioned before the Divine Revelations with the mana refund from Holy Light. This might actually make the mana refund from Holy Light maybe a necessity if you do end up playing this, but obviously it all comes down to tuning. And speaking of the right-hand side and the Holy Light part of the talent tree, which is something that players have been asking for, I think since the middle of BFA. I think it was halfway through Season 1 of BFA when Glimmer came and started to, you know, turn heads. The casting Holy Paladin, the OG, I want Holy Light, I don't want to smack stuff with my sword to generate Holy Power, which is even more contentious now in Shadowlands that Word of Glory costs Holy Power. So unless you're casting your Holy Light on a beacon target, it's very hard to generate that Holy Power. And even if you do that, that sometimes is not enough, since Holy Light is such a huge cast time. Now, you will see Unending Light, which is not yet implemented. It's a choice node with Bestow Faith, and Unending Light makes each Holy Power spent on Light of Dawn increase the healing of your next Word of Glory up to a maximum of 45%. Each tick is 5%, so basically 9 Holy Power spent. So 3 Light of Dawns makes your next Word of Glory slap really hard. This is clearly, again, also the rating side of the talents, because you do have a lot of Light of Dawn buffers here, and obviously if you keep going down, you'll have Rule of Law, which obviously is really good for raids, because, you know, everybody's spread out pretty far away and you want your heals to be as efficient as possible considering your mastery. And you also have Breaking Dawn closer to the bottom side, which could actually change how the AoE raid healing for Holy Paladin works, making Light of Dawn have a 40-yard range. Now, this is very hard to judge how this affects your mastery, And if you're even if the Light of Dawn hits up to 40 yards, obviously the further away targets are gonna be hit for less, but they will be hit. So that's actually pretty good. It definitely makes raid healing a little bit more efficient and a little bit better, especially with Light of Dawn. You don't have to have everybody being close to melee. So that's a good addition. Depending on how much healing this translates to, this could be a mandatory thing, and even if it is or isn't, this is cool. I like it. 40 yards on Light of Dawn, that's pretty big, man. And if we look on the slightly to the right-hand side of the right-hand side talent tree, you'll see a couple of dead ends. One of them ending with Beacon of Faith versus Virtue being a choice node, which it makes sense that there are choice nodes. They're very deep in, not as deep as, let's say, Crusaders might, but you do have to take Echoing Blessings, which is the conduit right now. And, you know, I mean, there's not much to say about Beacon of Virtue and Beacon of Faith. Beacon of Virtue has been used in dungeons for burst AoE healing every 15 seconds. And considering that the main generator of holy power, if you're going to be playing this side of the talent tree, is by actually casting Holy Light on Beacon, or at least that's what's intended. You can still go in melee and slap if you want. Taking Beacon of Virtue feels a little bit weird because you're losing that Beacon of Light to constantly cast those Holy Light on the target. And to even more to the right, you have Light of the Martyr, which goes down to Murad's Dying Breath, which has been something really fun for me, at least, to play. I think last season was played in Holy Paladin, the Light of the Martyr playstyle. And you also have the middle choice in between the two, Untempered Dedication, which I think, at least in theory, that these three combination of talents could make this playstyle of Holy Paladin particularly strong, and they're very cheap to get. There are only 3 points to get, and you get very strong effects, depending on, of course, how Light of the Martyr is tuned. So far, testing it, considering that sometimes I would bug out and not be able to heal the targets. Having this on-demand healing actually really helped a lot, even though Murad's didn't work, but Untempered Dedication did work, so back-to-back spamming Light of the Martyr on the target did help keeping people alive in contentious situations where shit hit the fan, and it did because bugs of alpha. So for emergency healings, I could see this being a thing. Obviously, it all depends on the tuning once again. And again, Holy Light as a whole could become a playstyle with talents such as Power of the Silver Hand, which I don't know if this was added to the Holy Toolkits before. It kind of sounds like it might have been something in Legion, but it is something that could be really strong, especially in raids where you do cast a lot, and maybe it's easier to cast since in dungeons you do have to move a lot, and that becomes a problem. And it ends up with a capstone kind of Tears Deliverance into Tears Munificence, Jesus, which is the Legion artifact ability, if I recall correctly. It can make Holy Light particularly strong, and if you take pretty much everything else Holy Light related, if you can get, I think you might be able to get this and Barrier of Fate, but I don't know how deep into the middle you can get. You might have to swap to sack Divine Revelations, which is what I mentioned before, because of a heavy 3-point investor. So if you do play heavy Holy Light playstyles, maybe you want Barrier of Fate, but then you have to still go into Glimmer. So it's all a little bit weirdly positioned here at the end, and I would very much love to see the casting playstyle be a choice as well. And that's kind of the major parts of the Holy Paladin talent tree. Obviously, we will need a lot more testing, because I'm actually happy how the talents look. Outside of all the tunings, which will happen probably close to the end of beta, so we won't know until then how good Holy Paladin will be, those tunings can define the builds, because obviously if it's always more efficient to play Glimmer, a lot of people will gravitate towards that, and that kind of sucks, because it's nice to have variety, right? You don't have to be forced into one particular build, but hopefully the tuning is okay where both could be viable, or maybe more combination of talents could be more viable and have some more interesting builds. I do like the choice of having, you know, man, I want to be in the melee, I want to slap things with my Crusader's strike and Holy Shock things and all of that, or be at the distance and cast super powerful Holy Lights. That's also really cool. A couple of things that I would like to mention as a noob Holy Paladin. I'm sure that the big brains know a little bit better, but I would argue that Infusion of Light could reduce the cast time of Holy Light, either in addition to what it already does, or instead of what it does to Holy Light, to make those long casts shorter, because in today's meta, the way encounters are designed, you have to move so much and you have to interrupt your casting so much. Not to mention that this ties heavily into Holy Power generation. If you are going to be playing a Holy Light playstyle, it makes it particularly hard, especially since you do have a 3-point investor that could work towards reducing the cast time to maybe make it a little bit more appealing. Because the build is just slow. If you do play Holy Light, it feels slow, since you do need a Holy Part for Words of Glory, and slapping him in 3 GCDs in melee is way more efficient than, you know, having to go through all of this. Well, not just 3 GCDs, but you know what I mean. This is how the Holy Paladin is looking so far. I appreciate them going heavier into making different playstyles a choice is really cool. I hope the tuning matches the dedication of variety. That can probably make or break the spec, or people can just pick the same build and play for another full expansion, which could be a little bit sad considering how many options the talents can unlock. What do you think about Holy Paladin? Is it good? Is it something that you might main in Dragonflight? Do you like the new changes? Are you a melee Holy Paladin fan? Are you a range casting Holy Paladin fan, or do you like both? Let us know in the comments. And once again, if you like the video, click the thumbs up, subscribe, enable those notifications. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the content, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.